Question number 4, Chris Hipkins.
My question is to the Minister of Education. Does she stand by all her statements?
The Honourable Hikia Parata.
Mr. Speaker, yes, I stand by my full statements in the context that they were given.
Supplementary question.
Supplementary question, Chris Hipkins.
Does she stand by her answer to the House yesterday that the $2.5 million surplus of a charter school sponsor are, quote, accounted for, but the member does not like the way they are using their funds, end quote? If so, can she explain exactly what the sponsor is using the $2.5 million for?
Honourable Hikia Parata.
Mr. Speaker, I do stand by my statement. So for the Kura Haurua ki Whangarei, they had an income of $2,016,630, parent contributions of $204, curriculum delivery was $149,668, finance and administration $239,381. Mr. Speaker, I can go on, but I'm happy to table this, although it is already in the public domain. Basically, total expenses were $1,355,782, leaving an operating surplus of $637,170.
Mr. Speaker.
Supplementary question, Chris Hipkins.
What is the operating surplus and the $1.8 million establishment grant they received in addition to that being used for?
Honourable Hikia Parata.
For their contracted outcomes, education deliverables.
Supplementary question, Chris Hipkins.
What costs was the $1.8 million establishment grant intended to cover?
The Honourable Hikia Parata.
Establishment costs.
Supplementary question.
Supplementary question, Chris Hipkins.
Given that none of the $1.8 million has been spent on establishment costs, does the Crown have any ability to recoup that money?
The Honourable Hikia Parata.
Mr. Speaker, the school is still in the process of establishing itself. It received, as part of the total sum I've just outlined, it received $2,016,630, of which $1.8 million was received for the purposes of establishing the school. As I advised the House yesterday, the school is leasing premises while it secures land if it is able to do so, whereupon, if it is able to do so, it will build a school. In the meantime, it has, according to their tabled accounts, banked that funds, have accrued interest and are spending it on education deliverables, which I'm sure the member and the House will be pleased to know. In 2014, they delivered 100% in NCEA 1, 86% in NCEA 2, 100% in NCEA 3, and this is for a school that, unlike other state schools, if the member would like to listen to the actual facts rather than himself, are required that their roll is made up of 75% of the most at-risk kids. The irony here, Mr. Speaker, is instead of this school being applauded in turning around kids most at risk, they are being criticised. Instead of being applauded for their transparent accountability, where these are up on the site, they are being deplored by the opposition.
Mr. Speaker.
Order. Supplementary question, Chris Hipkins.
Do Ministry of Education guidelines recommend that state schools aim to operate a 0.05% surplus? If so, how does she justify the roughly 66% surplus Hupuna Marama Trust generated once their establishment funding is taken into account?
The Honourable Hikia Parata.
Mr. Speaker, those are indeed the guidelines, not the prescription, and that is why just under 50% of all of our state schools run surplus operating budgets.
Supplementary question, Chris Hipkins.
Has any single state school in New Zealand operated a surplus in excess of 66%? If so, when and which ones?
Mr. Speaker,
the Honourable Hikia Parata.
I try very hard to be on top of my portfolio, but I'm unable to give the specific dollars for 2,493 state schools in financial year 2014. I think the member is being unreasonable.
Oh, supplementary question, Tracy Martin.
April 30th, 2015, that the ongoing problems at Hatopetra College boarding hostel need to be resolved by the school and the Catholic Church, even though she has the power to remove the hostel licence on health and safety grounds, which would force the diocese to take action to improve the hostel conditions for these boarding students.
Honourable Hiki-Parata.
Yes.
Question number 5, David Seymour.
Mr. Speaker.